What's up everybody, welcome back to Southern Life. On today's video, I'm going to give you the best assessment that you're going to find on the internet about the current situation in Florida's real estate market. To help better understand what's actually happening in Florida, let's take a brief look at other real estate markets throughout the United States so we have a starting point to compare to. This is Hoboken, New Jersey, right across from the beautiful skyline of Manhattan. The population here is 57,000 people. There are currently 20 price reductions in Hoboken, New Jersey. Bradenton, Florida also has exactly 57,000 people, but there are 890 price reductions here. Now, Bradenton's listings also include areas that are outside of the city limits, but there's still a vast difference between 20 listings with price reduction and 896 price reductions for an area of about the same population. Bonita Springs, Florida is a better example. They're at 56,000 people and they have 291 listings. Now those listings are all within the city limits of Bonita Springs, so you can see a ratio of more than 10 to 1. That means that per capita, there are almost 15 times more listings with price reductions in Bonita Springs, Florida than there are in Hoboken, New Jersey. In the last 7 days, there have been nearly 1,000 new listings in the Fort Myers MLS, but there have been 1,675 price decreases in the same time period. Now, the city of Fort Myers has under 100,000 people, yet there are nearly 1,000 price reductions on the Fort Myers MLS right now. Imagine that, a city that has less than 100,000 people, but you have 1,000 properties with price reductions. Now, Knoxville, Tennessee's population is 2 times higher than Fort Myers, but they only have 719 price reductions and just as much poverty and misery. Interestingly, Knoxville is one of the most popular places people leaving Fort Myers are heading to, and I have to say, in all my travels across America, I don't think I've seen a place more miserable than Knoxville, yet this is where many Floridians are relocating to, hoping for a better future. And let's not forget that people in Appalachia absolutely hate Floridians.
If you was going to Knoxville, Florida, it'd be easier.
There's a lot of people moving up here, right?
Way too many and way too fast. The rich people buying off the middle class houses and running the poor people after renting them out in small apartments, just running them completely out.
Yeah. And you figure the ones that are coming here,
well, the ones
they
that's
can't
coming
survive
here,
in Florida.
well, the one that's coming here, the one that's coming and buying up the property and paying all these Mexicans to come in, like.
So if you're one of those countless people from Fort Myers thinking about moving to Tennessee, that's really how I feel about you. Next door to Fort Myers is Lehigh Acres, officially 127,000 people. They have 961 properties with price reductions. Now, Lehigh Acres is unincorporated and it has grown tremendously. It's possible that there could be as many as 178,000 people living here. But even then, Knoxville, Tennessee, with 200,000 people, only has 719 price reductions. And I'm going to assume for Knoxville that also includes outside of city limits. And that's comparing it to Knoxville, a city that really isn't doing all that great right now. And if you think things are bad in the barren wasteland of Lehigh Acres, it's even worse in Cape Coral, Florida. And a little quiz, do you guys know the difference between Lehigh Acres and Cape Coral? Lehigh Acres is an unincorporated area, but Cape Coral is an actual city. Let's leave Lehigh Acres and hop on over real quick to Cape Coral on the other side of Fort Myers. The situation in Cape Coral is so abysmal with real estate right now that many real estate companies have actually closed permanently. Cape Coral is the largest city in Southwest Florida by population. As of now, over 225,000 people live here. Unfortunately, there are almost 1,500 price reductions right now in Cape Coral. That's almost as much as Miami, a far larger city. So what exactly is going on in Lee County, Florida, where Cape Coral, Lehigh Acres, and Fort Myers sit? Well, this area was for the longest one of the fastest growing places in the United States. People moved here thinking that they were going to find job opportunities, thinking that everything was going to be perfect. But wasn't there a YouTuber telling people that this was probably the worst idea they ever had? I can't really remember this guy's name right now, but if anybody watching remembers a YouTuber that was warning people about why they shouldn't move to Fort Myers, please let me know in the comment section. While all these Sam Elliott looking YouTubers were telling people that they should move down here, Chattanooga, Tennessee is about the same size of Cape Coral with 187,000 people, but they only had 415 houses with price reductions. I'm almost certain that for every homeless person in Chattanooga, there's an empty house in Cape Coral. But just go figure, there's 3.5 times more price reductions in Cape Coral than there are in Chattanooga, despite the fact that these cities have roughly about the same population. To really understand what the crap is going on in Florida, you just have to look at other cities throughout the country and compare it, and you'll realize how bad things are doing here right now. Let me just reiterate this. There are nearly 1,500 properties in Cape Coral with price reductions. Portland, Oregon has over 630,000 people and they're at 1,200. That's 3 times a larger population. While we're talking about the West Coast, Monterey, California only has 13 price reductions at the moment. If you're not familiar with Monterey, California, this is one of those places where every billionaire on earth has a home. It's places like Monterey, Naples, where all of the most wealthy people on earth are most likely to have a beach home of some sort. So let's compare what's going on in California to what's going on in the wealthiest places in Florida. So in Monterey, like we said, there are only 13 price reductions. That means that the wealthiest people on earth are still buying homes here, and there's a lot of demand for upscale real estate here. Now, this is a really fairly expensive real estate market. Homes along this coastline cost into the millions, but there just isn't that much abundance of real estate here right now. In fact, the most expensive homes here right now are in the $6 to $7 million price range. More expensive homes than that exist. They're just not listed right now, so people are holding on to these properties. The same cannot be said about Naples, Florida, another destination for the ultra wealthy, where currently 1,300 homes are sitting vacant with price reductions. This $18 million home just had a $1.2 million reduction. This property is sitting on the market for around $8 million. It's came down $1.3 million. This house in the Estates, they were trying to get $7 million out of it. They've stepped it down to $6 million. I couldn't imagine paying $6 million for a house in the Estates in Naples. In Sarasota, you can get a house on the water for less than that. Naples Park was one of the hottest markets in the city, but now this one has had to come down $200,000, and that's with golf access. In North Naples, this beautiful home has had to come down nearly $400,000. I think I've worked at this property before. 5th Avenue South, Naples' most exclusive address. This home has had to come down almost $2 million. And I told the realtor, unless you come down another $5 million, I'm not even interested in looking at it. Now, the bulk of price reductions in Naples are actually between the $500,000 to $700,000 price range, which is kind of below average for the city. So it's kind of like the middle class that's taking the bulk of these price reductions in Naples. Now, in my recent series that I've been showing you guys what's happening with the real estate market here in the Sarasota and Bradenton area, I've had a lot of people accuse me of only showing the hood or the worst area, saying that these are areas that were infested with illegals and undocumented people, and the reason why these areas are emptying out and going vacant is because everybody here got deported. Now, that right there is a vast misrepresentation of real life information, because if you look at the real numbers, the real bulk of where the price reductions are happening in the Sarasota area, the bulk of price reductions is happening between $500,000 to $600,000. This is basically middle class. But hop on over to Fort Myers, and the bulk of price reductions is in the $200,000 to $350,000 range. And what hurts about this situation is that a lot of them are young people that are buying their first home at extraordinarily high interest rates. A lot of them are elderly people who bought houses in Florida but now can't keep up with the cost of insurance. Now, if you follow my YouTube channel, I went on a series warning people not to buy houses in Florida unless they have at least a $500,000 net worth. But nobody will listen to me. Now, the same people that didn't listen to me and bought those houses are sitting on the market with houses that have been bought at extraordinarily high interest rates. Others now can't afford the homeowner's insurance, and now there's so much inventory that price reductions aren't even getting these houses off the market. So with the bulk of price reductions in Fort Myers happening in affordability areas, and in Sarasota it's affecting the middle class, in places like Naples it's the ultra wealthy that are taking the biggest hit, you have to understand that every city in Florida has its own unique characteristics. In Naples, Florida, the wealthy, they don't like to lose $2 million. Do you think that somebody that has a $20 million house on the real estate market right now really needs to lose $2 million? If you own a $15 million piece of property, you probably have another $100 million sitting over there. Why would you lose $2 million? Rich people don't take losses. When you see people in that price range taking millions of dollars at a time in losses, that's abnormal. And it's not a national trend, because if you look at real estate over in California in the same price ranges, they're not desperate to get rid of those properties there. They're not having to sell those properties there. There isn't even that much reduction of prices, let alone inventory. People are just holding on to those properties right now. When it comes to real estate right now, there's little ecosystems and little cities and places, and you hop on over to the next town and they got their own little ecosystem going on. So this isn't some across the board general idea of what's happening in Florida. Each one of these cities has their own specific situations. And what's interesting about Florida right now, it's that it's different particular situations that are making different particular people leave, which is the reason why many people are just done with Florida right now, because it isn't just one freaking problem in this state. It's like a handful of problems, and in some cities, those problems manifest themselves far more than in others. In the case of Fort Myers, the city has been an experiment for immigration laws on a state level even before the federal level changes that are taking place now had came through. And that meant that Fort Myers had already got a taste of what the crap was coming way before anybody else. This was already happening in Fort Myers way before it's happening in other places, since after all, Fort Myers was a little experiment for the state of Florida to start to implement state level immigration laws before the levels of federal that are now present throughout the whole country. This is where it first happened, and this is where we first got to see what happens to neighborhoods that get decimated by immigration laws. We saw, and we've documented it well on our channel, that in the case of Fort Myers, when the working class immigrants left and the Americans and U.S. citizens moved in, it became a gang warfare. We've seen several homicides happen. We've covered this area before, during, and after these changes, and we saw a bad and dangerous neighborhood become an outright gang war zone with these changes. Does that mean that that's what's going to happen everywhere? No, that's the specific microclimate of the economy in Fort Myers, and these changes affected this economy in this way. Not every city acts the same way under the same circumstances. Fort Myers had a lot of speculation. It had a lot of investment. It had a lot of people from all over the country that moved here, not aware that the city's economy would never correlate with the cost of living here, and that it was all mostly a freaking bubble. One person on YouTube had been telling you guys for the longest. It took a while for that to come through and show out, but we're seeing now today that everything that I told you about what's going to happen in Fort Myers is taking place right now. So what do all these places have in common that are struggling right now? Well, they all happen to be the places where people from other states moved to the most during that 2020 bubble. See, there was an influx of people during 2020, the ones that didn't want to wear masks. You know, the ones that didn't want to wear masks, they're all bailing out right now. They changed their minds. They figured out that they got scammed and defrauded. Oh, you don't believe me? Well, let's look at real life analytics. What's the one place in Florida where these people didn't move to? They moved to Northport. They moved to Fort Myers. They moved to Cape Coral. Where didn't these people move to? Opa-locka and Hialeah. These places remain demographically identical today than what they did many years ago, before the 2020. The only exception is that the Hispanic community has shifted a little bit further north and east into the African American communities, but these are local people from Dade County that push into these areas. Nobody moved to Opa-locka. A lot of people moved to the coastline of Miami, right? Well, you can clearly see the bulk of mass condos for sale along the coastline of Miami where they moved to. But areas like Opa-locka and Hialeah, nobody moved there. Are there massive amounts of price reductions in Opa-locka and Hialeah right now? No. You know why? Because nobody from New York moved to Opa-locka and Hialeah. Right now in Opa-locka, Florida, there are only 12 houses with price reductions. In Hialeah, Florida, with a larger population than Cape Coral, only has 161 houses with price reductions. So let's be clear, not every city in Florida is getting hit the same way right now. The historic Cuban and Haitian communities in Miami, where these people didn't move to, their real estate markets are doing strong. And despite the fact that many people bailed out of Hialeah, just like they bailed out of California not too long ago. You guys remember everybody left California, everybody sold in California? When they left California, they didn't have any problems finding buyers for their properties, making large price appreciation based profits on their properties. Nobody that left California during the 2020 thing had any trouble selling their properties. There was always somebody willing to buy them. And you've seen now in South Florida, all the Cubans that moved to Cape Coral and to Tampa and to Northport, they didn't have any problem selling their properties in Miami. And now the real estate market in Miami is looking strong, while in those places they moved to, it's an absolute freaking train wreck. When it comes to real estate, the people that get scared and bail out and follow the trends are always the ones that lose. In the case of California, all those people that sold those houses in California and came over here are now having to go back to California because they can't make $100,000 or $200,000 a year in Florida. They've tried for a few years and they're realizing that now their insurance is going up, their property taxes are going up, they're not making as much money as they did in California. Many of them got on an airplane back to Los Angeles or New York to get a job in those places because they couldn't get a job here in Florida. Furthermore, a huge, if not significant portion of the ones that still have houses here in Florida are coming to Florida for the weekend and going to work in New York City during the week. And they're doing this because of the incentive that in the state of Florida, they don't have to pay taxes. So they got their main home here in Florida, their kids and wife are here in Florida, but during the week they get on an airplane and go make some money in New York City, only coming down to Florida for the weekend. Despite the fact that I have a great YouTube career that pays a lot of money, it's not enough money to live here in the state of Florida, so I've been Uber driving for extra money, and many of the people that I take to the airport on a weekly basis are actually people who are working in San Francisco, working in San Diego or New York City, but they have their main residence here in Florida, commuting during the week on an airplane back to New York or California because they haven't been able to find the same jobs here in Florida as they had back home in those states. I mean, I'm the perfect example. I have two sources of income. One is YouTube. It comes from California. The other one is Uber. It also comes from California. Despite the fact that I live in Florida, both of my sources of income come from California. So what a lot of people aren't talking about is the fact that most of the money that exists in Florida right now is being extracted from New York. It's being extracted from California and being brought to Florida so it doesn't have to pay taxes. The state of Florida has become a parasite, sucking the life out of New York, New Jersey, and California to feed the lifestyle that exists here. And this isn't actually just my opinion. A recent study looked at tax burden states and it compared the states that leech off the system the most to the states that contribute to the system the most. And this study unraveled the fact that states like Florida, Texas, and Tennessee are a freaking tax burden who are actually leeching the tax benefits from states like California, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. This is a real study on tax burden states showing that places like Texas and Florida are actually just leeching off of states like California and New York. It's happening on a state and federal level, but it's also happening in a microscopic level of situations like the ones we've talked about today, with people that have large pensions, benefits, and tax burden incentives to move to Florida. They grab all the New York City and all their San Diego money and come live lavishly here in Florida, but none of that money was made here. All that money was suctioned off from the state that they're from. People from California and New York don't have to worry about Floridians moving there and taking their jobs and depleting their state's resources because nobody in Florida has any benefits. Nobody in Florida has any pensions from a police department where they can be able to afford to move somewhere else. And that's really the reality of what's been feeding Florida's economy. Florida has been suctioning all the money out of California, suctioning all the money out of New York, and let's not forget Illinois. Over the last 5 years, Florida's been this giant leech of a parasite sucking the life out of all these states. But now the people that moved here are finding out that now the state of Florida is starting to suck the life out of them too, and they're bailing out before it's too late. And let's not forget, it's Cape Coral that's got a problem. It's Northport that's got a problem. It's Lehigh that's got a problem. There's no panic in the market in Opa-locka and Hialeah where these people didn't move to. So let's be clear about where the problem is in Florida, because a lot of people just repeat everything they hear on Fox News, but none of that stupidity lines up with the reality of real life information and analytics coming off the real estate market. You can believe whatever the crap you want to, but that doesn't mean it's real. Every time I drop one of these real estate videos, I have to see 50 or 80 people talking garbage about how the reason this is happening is because of illegals, but that's not what the analytics are showing. In Naples, it's the ultra wealthy who are bailing out. In Fort Myers, it's the people who moved here for affordable retirement that are bailing out because they can't afford the insurance. And over here in Sarasota and Bradenton, it's the middle class that is having to have the price reductions because they can't afford their lifestyles anymore. So let's be clear about what the analytics actually show versus the garbage you hear on Fox News. Because every time I drop these videos, I have people saying, oh, it's the poor people, it's the immigrants, it's the communities that have a lot of illegals. That's not what the analytics are showing. You're certainly welcome to talk all the garbage you want in the comments section. I get paid for that. But if you want to talk with real numbers and real analytics about the areas that are having the most problems, it sure doesn't seem to correlate with the truth. In fact, what place in Florida has the most illegals right now? Immokalee, Florida. Everybody knows that. Immokalee is the city with the most illegals. There's only one price reduction right now in Immokalee. So who's really bailing out of Florida right now? Because the analytics are pretty freaking... This isn't, what's happening? I can't tell what these analytics... No, this is pretty straight freaking forward. These analytics are pretty freaking clear on what's happening in Florida. And it's reflected in my personal economy that I've been thinking about moving to a state like Washington or Oregon lately. And in fact, that's what people on my YouTube channel are telling me I need to do if I want to improve my economical situation. Because everything kind of points in the same direction for Florida right now. The other place people keep telling me is Eastern Tennessee. And I've been up there recently. And believe me, I don't want any part of that mess down there. I know a lot of you guys say that you moved up there and you like it, but when I go to Eastern Tennessee, I don't like that place for crap. And well, honestly, the truth is, it's not that I don't like Eastern Tennessee, it's that they don't like me. And they're vocal about it. We've heard it on today's video, so there's no question mark about that. That's pretty straightforward. I'm not going to live in a place where I feel unwelcome. If you don't want me in your community, I want to be part of your community even less. I want to live somewhere where I can be welcomed and loved and appreciated by the community, like is the case of where I live right now in Sarasota and Bradenton, where I get recognized every day and everybody loves me. I've had no problems here in 3 years. This is a very welcoming community. I would almost rather deal with economical hardships in a place where I feel welcomed than to live comfortably in a place where people don't want me. If you haven't figured that part out, that's the reason I still live in Florida to this day. But Florida's getting to the point where it's not feasible anymore because it went from bad to worse. And the next option that I would have is being homeless and riding a bicycle. And even then, I don't think I could afford freaking living in Florida because that's how ridiculous this state was. And that's the fact that most of the money that was coming into Florida was being suctioned off from sources that are being cut off right now. The state of Florida kind of beat that dead horse and now it's starting to stink. Northport, Florida was the fastest growing place in the United States a few years ago. Right now, there's almost 600 houses there with price reductions and they're not moving. In Bonita Springs, Florida, small town, almost 300 price reductions, the bulk of which are between $500,000 to $700,000. Who's really suffering here? It's the middle class. In Bradenton, Florida, the peak of price reductions is in about the $500,000 price range. It's the middle class who's suffering. Louisville, Kentucky, Jefferson County, 700,000 people. Less than 600 houses have price reductions here. To summarize today's video, I'm just going to show you guys a few other markets in the United States so you can have more of a comparison of how bad things are in Florida right now. Compton, California only has 30 homes with price reductions at the moment. Omaha, Nebraska, over 300. I think Oklahoma, Nebraska, Kansas are doing really good in today's economy because it's not an attractive place to move to. They have a more stable economy in those states. Santa Barbara, California, only 74 price reductions. So I guess the story of today's video would be the more people move to your city during that madness, the more your economy is about to suffer now. Those people have changed their minds, they're bailing out, and the more people move to your metropolitan area or city in Florida during that 2020 town, you didn't think we could flip it, huh? So when it comes to price reductions in Florida, come on, let's get down. No, we don't need a club, we can do it at my house. Charlotte County, Florida has over 1,800 price reductions at the moment. That's insane. That's the situation right now in Southwest Florida. It isn't just immigration, it isn't just high insurance costs, it's really a conglomeration of different problems that the state of Florida is facing that has a lot of people bailing out, reducing prices, and heading to places where they'll have better chances of incomes and future outlooks than Florida, a state that slowly sucks the life out of you to the point where you end up with more than just nothing, with a negative net worth. It's where we're at right now, and it's where a lot of people are gonna be if they don't bail the crap out of Florida. And interestingly enough, it's the places like Hialeah and Opa-locka, practically the places people refer to as the hoods, that are doing better than your community right now. This is Hialeah, Florida. Not too many people moved here. A lot of people are afraid of Hialeah because it's mostly Cubans, and frankly, people here are absolutely okay with that because Hialeah's economy is doing strong. The real estate market right now is one of the strongest in Florida because they didn't have the influx of stupid idiots from New York who thought they were going to move to Florida and do well. Hialeah is actually doing better than a lot of places right now, despite all the garbage that people spill on the internet about how ICE is going to destroy Hialeah and like that Hank Williams song, we're going to take Miami back. Well, you're going to have a hard time taking this part of Miami back. You tell Hank Williams Jr. down there that he can have Punta Gorda, Northport, and Lehigh back, but ain't nothing going back in Miami, baby, especially Hialeah. And to all the Cubans that sold their houses in Hialeah to move to Northport, Punta Gorda, and Port Charlotte, and Cape Coral, and all that crap, they better start wiping those old people's butts at that nursing home. The hood is never phased, dog. The hood can survive anything. Your city may go to crap, but Hialeah is going to be all right. And you know, it's just crazy to think that the African-American hoods in Hialeah and the places in Florida where these people were too good to move to are actually the places now where the economy is looking stronger and where people's economical outlooks look best. And it's the places that people thought were cool and speculative that are now actually the ones in the gutter. And it's crazy to see how in Miami, the suburban price range, like the mid 500s and 700,000s, a lot of people in the suburbs are actually having price reductions and things are getting tight for them. But in good old Hialeah, things just continue like normal. So it looks like in this coming madness that's about to hit the state of Florida, I think places like Opa-locka, Hialeah, the African-American neighborhoods, things there are going to continue pretty much the same. I mean, those people, they chose the steady and long route, sticking to their communities, sticking to their neighborhoods, and not speculating too much. But the areas that kind of try to blow up a bubble too fast, too quick, now those places are going to have a real wake-up call here soon. And then there's always this idiot in the comment section. Well, now that the prices are dropping, people like me can finally buy something. If the people that have more money than you are bailing out and ditching these properties because they can't afford to keep them, what makes you think that you, who couldn't get one to begin with, is going to be able to afford it now? That even the people that have more money are bailing out. It's the stupidity of people that do not understand how real estate works. Imagine an idiot who thinks that now there's opportunities. We're getting rid of the illegals. Now there's going to be opportunities for me. There's price reductions. I'm going to be able to buy a house now. Yeah, stupid. When the people that are getting rid of them have more money than you and they're having to ditch it because they can't afford it, what makes you think that you, who couldn't get one to begin with, is going to be better off than them? It's just the stupidity of people who understand nothing about economics, yet think that in all this turmoil, they're going to make money. If the people who have millions of dollars in Naples are taking a $2 million loss on a mansion, what makes you think that a stupid idiot like you living in the hood, buying a house from the 70s, is going to be better off? It's just hilarious how little people understand what's happening in Florida. There's literally people that think that in this madness, they're going to make a profit, completely unaware of the reality that if people that have more money than them can't survive, how the crap are you? No, stupid. If the people who are ditching these properties had to leave, what makes you in a worse position than them think that you're going to be on the come up about this situation? It's hilarious. The United States economy is based off of GDP. If you reduce the population, you reduce the GDP, and that's the total economical output, which is what most of us rely on to make a living. The less people you have, the less money circulating in general, the less you're going to make, stupid. These people live in a capitalistic country and they understand nothing about capitalism. It's like if they grew up in a dictatorship and all of their economical understanding came from a dictatorship mindset, but they don't understand the simple basic principles of capitalism in a country where capitalism is the economical movement. This is the way this country functions and works. You live in a capitalistic country and you don't understand how capitalism works. Capitalism means total. Total means GDP. That's every dollar that's in the bag. Capital is synonymous with stockpile and funds. If you don't have capital, you don't have funds. The reduction of the total output of the economy means a reduction in your income, stupid. Perhaps you've never heard the total working capital. You know what working capital means? Yeah, if you don't have working capital, you're not working, stupid. The only people who can make money during a reduction in capital is people who have the most capital. And those people are retracting right now. They're fleeing. So if the people with money are losing money, how the crap do you think you without money is going to get a win out of this? It's ridiculous. But then again, brains of the idiots, you know? You know what rich people are doing? They're bailing out. They're selling their mansions. They're trying to get capital because it's clear that there's a reduction in capital total, working capital, funds, stockpile. There's a reduction in capital right now. That's why the rich people are trying to get capital, aka money, selling their mansions. That should be a clue. You would have to be an absolute fool to think that anything positive could come to Southwest Florida right now. Maybe a Category 5 hurricane to level the whole place would be a good start. But in the meantime, it doesn't look like anything, hopefully anything that good could happen. I guess a great place to start with Southwest Florida would just be a hurricane Category 5 to just kind of like start from scratch again, kind of like what happened in New Orleans.